So I read well enough to get by, but not ahead. I read well enough to graduate from high school, but not get a real education. I read well enough to read a couple Dr. Seuss books to my children, but not well enough to read a book on how to nurture children. I read well enough to see the difference between a can of cat food and a can of tuna fish, but not well enough to read and follow a recipe to prepare that tuna fish. And oh yeah, I read well enough to get just about any minimum wage job, but not well enough to get a job with benefits that would take care of the rest of my life. And I read well enough to sign my name to legal papers that were going to cost dearly. And I'll share that in a minute. And when I tell you I read, and by the way, I read all the time. Reading was extremely hard work, but I knew there was knowledge in books, and I wanted that knowledge. I was hungry for that. So what I really did was name one word at a time. So by the time I got to the period at the end of that sentence, I had no clue of the concept of what I was reading, certainly no detail. I had to read every sentence 3 times to just hint at what was in front of me. But low literacy skills suck the energy out of you. Every task is difficult and exhausting when it comes to paperwork. Also, my fingers do the reading before my eyes do. If David was to come up and hand me a single sheet of paper, I might risk reading it silently in front of him. But if he slipped in 2 pieces of paper, I'm not about to do that. Now talk about flawed thinking. I am so afraid that you will see my brain twisting like a rusty wheel trying to decipher those ink lines and circles, that I don't want to humiliate myself like that in front of you. There's that much emotional debris left over from those years of feeling and being told I was stupid. It's emotional mountain climbing. So after I graduated from high school, the following year, I married my high school sweetheart. Looking back, now that I'm a mature person, I realize that I married to get away from my mother. That's really not a good reason for him or for her. But we had 2 children, and so for the first time in my life, somebody needed me, and they were needs that I could fulfill. I took them for walks. I fed them Cheerios, occasionally other food. I didn't do well in home economics either. I could bathe them and walk them and etc. So I was finally useful, or felt useful. So about 5 or 6 years into that marriage, we were having it wasn't the first time it was an argument, but at this moment in time, we were having this argument. And it's the second time that an argument resulted in me being knocked across a room. I picked myself up and went to the phone and sheepishly called my mother. Could I come home? To which I heard, you made your bed, you lie in it. Now I have a really serious problem. I don't feel safe where I am. Nothing in my life taught me it was okay for my husband to hit me. And I have no marketable skills. What are my choices? Oh yeah, I could go back to being a car hop. I can take your hamburger order. I can make change. Back then, minimum wage, 65 cents an hour. You didn't have to have a college degree to figure out that wasn't going to do it. The only other thought I had feeling that kind of pressure was, I'm female. I could sell my body. By the grace of God, it didn't come to that. But that's what I thought. After all, what would I do when my children got hungry? We agreed to share an attorney. Don't do that. Small town outside of San Francisco. I arrived at the appointed time for me, and there are 5 sheets of paper on the edge of his desk facing me, so I'm not the first one in his office.